All right. Happy Friday, August 31st, for my first, second, and third period classes. I hope your day is going well so far since it is Friday. I know you're relieved to have the first long weekend time of our school year because we don't have school on Monday. It's Labor Day. Hooray for that, I'm sure, for that's what you're saying. By this point in class, you have done your warm up with the Connect 2 activity where you picked 6 words from your crossword and explained how 2 words were connected, so 3 pairs. And Mr. Reese has gone over your second crossword for this week, gone over the answers for that, so that you have the correct answers for it. And now it's time to move on and get set up in our notebook for our lesson for today. So in the table of contents on page 2, we're going to go down to our next available line and write in our table of contents page 13 and the title of page 13, which is Why is History Important? Guided reading / reflective questions. And then we're going to go ahead and do page 14 as well. And its title or topic being Cause and Effect / Measuring Time. So again, we are on page 2 of the table of contents, and we are filling out the information for pages 13 and pages 14. Okay, and of course, by now we all know Mr. Reese can pause the video and give you some time to copy that down in your table of contents. Now, when you flip to page 13, okay, I would like for your notebook to go ahead and be open across your desk so that we can see both the left side and the right side. And we're going to start today with adding some questions to the left-hand side or the back side to page 12. Okay, and you're going to split your page down the middle horizontally where you see my red line. And I have it at just about where the second hole on that paper is on the right-hand side, right here. And I would put my line there as well. If you'd like to use colored pencil, you're more than welcome to. I used marker because that's just what I had available for me. And you can use colored pencil to establish opening question and closing question as well. And you don't have to write question out. You can just put a Q. I believe by 7th grade we understand that a Q usually stands for question. And since it's a little hard to see what I wrote in pencil, I wrote it out to the side, or typed it out to the side, I should say, what you will be writing down. So you'll write down opening question and then the actual question, which is, why is history important? You will also do the same for the bottom half where it says closing Q. And here you will have 2 questions. What types of things can history reveal about the past? And what are historical periods? All right. Now, after you have these written down, I would like you, from your prior knowledge, which means all of what you know about history up until this point, okay, and all of what you know about the importance of education up to this point, use that to explain to me in your own words why you think history is important. Okay, and go ahead and start filling out the opening question. While you are filling out this opening question, Mr. Reese is going to be passing out some handouts. Okay, and when everyone has one of these handouts, it will be time to move on from the opening question to the guided reading. Do not worry about the closing questions just yet. The answers to those questions you will find out in your guided reading. So for now, while Mr. Reese is passing out the handouts, I would like for you just to focus on why is history important? And I would like for you to write until you feel you have truly fulfilled all the information you can for that answer. And Mr. Reese is going to go ahead and pause the video so that you can have these questions there to copy down and to give you a chance to answer the opening question. All right, guys, so now it's time to move on to the right-hand side of our page 13. And now it's time to do our typical daily work with making sure our notebook is labeled correctly. So page 13 should be labeled in the top right-hand corner, in the bottom right-hand corner. And your title page, or your title, not your title page, sorry, your title line should say, why is history important? Guided reading, reflective cues, right? Reflective questions. All right. Now that we have that written down, look at what I have glued in my notebook. Okay. All of the extra border information, you can get a pair of scissors. Either Mr. Reese will pass those out or he'll let you go row by row to get a pair of scissors, or maybe you have your own. But you can trim out the fat, as I like to call it. Trim out the fat, get rid of the parts you don't need cut or glued into your notebook. Okay, so that your page of information that you do need fits more snugly, fits more nicely in your notebook. Okay, now, so that you do not cover over your title, Why is History Important? The bottom part will have to be folded. As you can see, on the left-hand side, my left image, I have folded my paper to cover right beneath the fourth paragraph down. Okay, cover right beneath its last line of what says, we live in the era of modern history. So my timeline is covered and my task underneath the word sequencing is covered. So you fold there, and everything from the corner, the top left-hand corner, across to the top right-hand corner of that page, all the way down to where you have that folded. Put some glue on the back. Okay, make sure you got nicely glued. Then flip it over and smooth it on into your notebook. Okay, just make sure that this tab at the bottom, okay, the tab that you folded, does not get glue on it. Okay, because we want that to fold up and stay nicely folded. All right. Now, once you have this glued in, you'll be working on tasks 1, 2, 3, and 4 here to the side. Okay? And you can follow Mr. Reese's instructions on that, on whether or not you will work on those individually with a partner, or if you will be doing it as a class with him reading along and working these tasks out with you. Okay. When you have finished the 4 tasks, or the time is up for you to finish those 4 tasks, Mr. Reese is going to go ahead and pass out what needs to be glued in for your next page, page 14. Okay, and Mr. Reese can pause this video, let you guys work on page 13, and then play this video when you guys are ready for page 14. Okay, so page 14. Make sure you have your title, cause and effect, measuring time. I know my pictures have it cut off, but make sure that page 14 is in the top right-hand corner, in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, and he has passed out 2 sheets to you. All right. One says what is cause, or what is a cause and what is an effect. And another has this piece right here, measuring time, as well as a timeline. So let's talk about this bottom one first. Okay. The handout that you are given that says measuring time, if you will please cut out the measuring time so it can be glued in on page 14, and take the timeline and tuck it into a pocket of your notebook so that it will be ready to use on Monday. Please do not lose it. Put it in the pocket so that you do not lose it. That is what the pocket is for. All right. And I believe the measuring time is easy enough to glue down. You just need to flip it to its back, put enough glue on it to hold it down, and when you flip it back, smooth it out onto your page. Nothing needs to be folded a certain way for it to fit into your notebook, hopefully. Okay. Now, let's look at your cause and effect foldable. Okay. In or on your cause and effect foldable, you will see these very thin dotted lines on either side of the middle of the arrow. It's about 1 inch thick. What you will need to do is fold along those dotted lines. Okay. The right-hand side might be a little easier because the majority of its line is this thick solid line of the arrow. So it might be easier to start with that side and fold down there. And then come over and fold this. After you've folded it, okay, you will flip this entire foldable over, and you are going to glue down only the middle section. So you're going to take your glue stick, and you can start at the top, drag it down, drag it back up one more time, drag it back down one more time. So about 1 or 2 good drags across the middle here of glue. And then you'll flip it over and glue it in, smooth it out, okay, so that the arrow is laying flat. All right. And then that way, when it is time to write your answers, these 2 tabs on the left and right hand side can come up and you can fill in your answers underneath. Now, once this is glued in, your answers to these two questions come from page 13. Okay, you will find exactly one sentence that tells you what a cause is and exactly one sentence that tells you what an effect is. And I would like for you to rewrite that whole sentence for a cause underneath the side that says what is a cause, and that one whole sentence for an effect under the side that says what is an effect. All right. So Mr. Reese can pause the video and give you time to make sure you get these glued in, get your answers to what is a cause, what is an effect, before we move on and talk about filling in the measuring time graphic organizer. All right, so now that you have your answers to the foldable above, let's talk about measuring time. This is kind of like our time ruler, okay, if we were going to measure time. 1 millennium here is worth 10 centuries. Okay, and each century, so here's century 1, each century holds 10 decades. Okay, and this red right here represents 1 decade. The orange represents every 10 decades. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on. All right. And this shows you that there are 10 centuries in a millennium, 100 decades in a millennium. Okay. And then here I've color-coded the answer key for the bottom. Since I shaded my millennium blue, I wrote in blue. Since I shaded my century green, I wrote it in green. Since I shaded my decades in tens in orange, I have it there in orange. Okay. And then my years, because I don't have them labeled on here, I picked a different color and put them in purple. But 1 millennium means 10 centuries. 10 centuries equals 100 decades, or 1 millennium equals 100 decades. 1 century is 10 decades, or 100 years. All right, and 1 decade equals 10 years. All right, so this way, when we're talking about time, we can flip back to this and really talk about how long ago it really was, how many years ago it really and truly was. And Mr. Reese can pause this video again to give you a chance to copy this information down. All right, and once you have this information copied down, we are done with our lesson for today. You are done with what I expected you to learn out of today, which is measuring time, cause and effect, and why we study history. Okay? Now, by the end of the class period, if you have time in class, you are welcome to answer the closing questions. If you are crunched on time and there is no time to answer these closing questions, please come to class with these questions answered on Tuesday, because we don't have school on Monday. It'll be Labor Day. So that is your homework, answering those two questions. They should be easy to answer because you have the information there to help you answer those two questions. All right. So, happy Friday. Have a happy Labor Day.